Alright, so the step is old to begin with, but a few years ago we had an invasion of carpenter ants in this front corner here, and it's gotten really bad as a result. The wood has all been eaten out, and subsequent winters have taken its toll as well. So I'm going to replace the step, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that I don't have to rip the whole thing out at once. Because then I will be without a step and it'll be a lot more complicated. So you can see I've got all the vine cut out here, and so I've got this all jacked up. The weight is currently supported on my jack post. I'm taking out this guy and I'm going to put in a 4x4. Going to have to cut it off here because we're going to keep this railing for now. You can see that I've got my jack post supported, just because the weight, by the nature of where that is, the weight is pushing out this way some. So, and there's only about this much overlap. This is the top notch on the jack post. There's only about that much overlap between the two posts. So I've got it secured with a couple of ropes over to the other post there, just to keep it from buckling out that way. I think it'll be fine. And I'm about to start ripping this up. Those two screws have got to come out, and I'm going at it with the Dremel to get them out. They're just not going to come out on their own. Alright, just a note to self, kind of a stupid move, but I should have cut these first before taking that out, because this is just flying all over the place while I'm trying to cut that with the hacksaw, and it's not terribly fun, but you live, you learn. I also brace this up so it doesn't fall. As soon as that last piece comes out, this is going to want to fall. Still don't know how we're going to preserve this in the whole scheme of things, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Well, I got that top piece out, and kind of my worst fear, all this flashing and stuff was put on here to cover up a real friggin' mess of rot. Now fortunately it's all cedar like the rest of this house, so it holds strength even when it's rotting. I'm going to have to basically cut out a bit of that and replace it, and then at some point in the next couple of years this roof is going to have to be revisited after I get the base on. But with the flashing and stuff, it's not getting any worse, so we'll see what I do. Alright, so this one's not too bad. There's a lot of rot right in the end, but the rest of it, like basically from here back, is pretty good. This one's really bad. I'm going to have to take that whole chunk out, cut another piece of something and put it in place, and then put another cap piece over top of that for the corner. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, I've got a piece of pressure treated there, and these were different thicknesses, believe it or not, because the wood wasn't matching up, and I had to jerry-rig that little piece just because this piece is about a good 1/8 of an inch thicker than that one. So in order to get them to almost match up, I had to do that. Now I've got some wood filler. I'm going to put it all in there and see what comes out of that, and then I can cut a piece to cap it. So this is the part that the ants got into, and you can see it's quite a bit worse. Even here the ants weren't into. This is just regular weather damage. This front corner though is just eaten to crap, and then right back to about here it's okay back there. But I'm going to take this one out, cut this one off, and then supplement it alongside, and I'll cut that one off there and put another one on the inside. And what I'm going to try to do is replace this piece by piece, and so the frame, the outer part of the frame, is going to end up being 2 2x6s deep because I'm going to replace part of it at a time. This is best I can tell. Otherwise it would be a pretty major operation, propping up the whole roof, and then my step would be out of commission for a really long time, like for me to do it. So I think I'm going to be able to do it this way. Alright, so the front sill along the house is actually in really good shape except for that front corner. So well, I just took my circular saw and I set the depth for a 2x4 and I buzzed that off. Now what I've discovered is that underneath the new sill there's an old sill that's kind of in rough shape and it's been around for a while. I just pulled a square nail out of it there. That means it's pretty old. Fortunately it's cedar. There is some rot here, but I think it's still pretty good. I'm just going to screw that down in, or maybe I'll buzz that off, see what's underneath. I don't know. I'm afraid I'll get one step further and I'll have nothing to screw anything to. I guess my joists have to be under there somewhere. So I don't know yet if I'm going to just leave that for now. I'll just screw that in and then screw to it. We'll see. In any case, I'm going to have to drop a piece of fabric down here to keep more water from getting out of it and getting into it. And then I got some spray foam insulation for crack filling. I'm going to go into my foundation there. Probably mice getting in there. So we'll see. Right, poking around there now, I've determined that this is actually still a pretty good piece of wood, that old cedar. I've got a lot of cedar in this house, and I've cut a lot of holes in this house, and I know what cedar's like. So I whacked some screws in there, some regular 3-inch deck screws. Now I've got these bolts, these structural bolts, and I'll just put a couple of those in, 2 or 3 in as well. They've got the big head on them to help hold it. And then I'll cover that over with the tar paper, and then I think it'll be okay. Alright, I cut those off. I'm going to extend new boards up and then double them up like I said. They had these, they had a support here just going right into the dirt. And they got another one there just kind of going right into the dirt. I put the deck block there. I'm going to put another one here. This is in still good enough shape to continue to use, as are the other two. They're chipping away some, but that's a massive chunk of concrete, so I'm not worried about it. Just pulling all this out now, and we'll measure up a new frame. So I cut off that other length of sill there, even though you can see that's perfectly good lumber. I cut it off so that I can put some more of these structural bolts into there, just to secure this old sill on better. And as I go along with the next step, I'm going to rip the whole thing off as I go and replace it completely, just so I can get in behind and put those other bolts. Alright, so now I'm just doing a little hand diagram here of what I've got. 54 inches over there, 101 inches here, and I'm getting it all measured up and drawn up. Measure twice and make sure everything is what I'm expecting it to be before I start cutting anything. And then I'll have my diagram to go by. Alright, you can see I got the tar paper in behind there. It goes a good inch up underneath of that thing there. Alright, so I've got quite a few of those structural bolts in there. I think we're pretty sturdy. I doubled up on this guy for 2 reasons. One, because it's the edge, but also to give me more real estate on my brick. And I know that arguably I should have some of that gasket under here. I'm not worried about it. This is still going to outlast my intention for this repair job, so no big deal. I got lucky that this was just the right height. This brick was just precisely the right height sitting on top of this footing, the existing footing, for everything to be just perfectly level. So I got my post out now, my support post. I still got to take that crap off the top, and I'm going to show you another clip, this little bit over here that I screwed up when I did that. But my railing is not fixed yet. I just have it tied in place. I got a couple of brackets. I'm going to use tie wraps just to hack something together for the short term. And I got my, oh yeah, so this guy, this inside, this one is replacing the outside one, and there's the original wood. This one goes all the way to the next support over there. It's got a little bit of purchase on that support there. When I get around to doing the middle part here, yeah, sorry, my tools are scattered all over here. When I get around to doing the next 1/3, I'm going to take this original one away and replace it right up to the middle post and then halfway to the next post with one big 8-foot length. And then, so the whole thing, it started out, the whole thing was just single 2x6, and by the time I get to the end it'll be double 2x6, and it's all put in place with these, where did I put one there? With those big, maybe you didn't see it, but you can see them sticking through here. I've got 3 of those big structural bolts in here. Those things are just awesome. And let me see. There. I got a bunch of the structural bolts in here, into my 4x4, and that one, and there's a couple more just holding these two together. You can see that I've got some posts mounted. This one also goes right up the same distance as that one. It's got to be adjusted some more when this piece comes out. When I do the next third, it's got to move that way just a little bit. So I'm not going to actually screw anything down to this one when I put my deck boards on top, which is what I'm about to start to do. Because this piece is going to move a little bit. You can see that I put a deck block down there almost in the middle. That was just a better spot that I could see. I used a joist hanger here. I screwed it in with screws on the side, some relatively short ones, and then these are 3 inches going in on a diagonal that way and that way. And then I got a 6-inch, one of those 6-inch structural bolts, so it comes up to like about there or something inside, so that's not going anywhere. I think she's pretty sturdy. It's definitely way more sturdy than it was, and I'm looking forward to getting these deck boards on, finishing up, then I can start planning for the next 1/3. I just wanted to say a quick word on why I'm doing it this way. Basically, if I were to rip the whole thing off, it would take me probably 3 to 4 weekends to finish, so I'd be like a whole month without a front door, and this is our most used door. So what I've decided to do was do it in thirds, a weekend at a time. I can split it up. At the end of the weekend I've got my porch again, as you'll see once I'm done here. Also, when you're doing it this way, it's definitely a repair. You don't need a permit for it or anything like that. If you were to rip it right out and redo it, you would need a permit. So that. Alright, I got my first floorboard on here. Second one, I'm going to have to cut around here. So even if I do cut it, I don't think I'm going to bother cutting it precisely. I'll just go to here. And if I did cut around it, I'd only have this much of the board supporting the weight of that board. So I cut a short piece of 2x6 to go underneath and support the board right here. Oh yeah, I was just in the process of taking this all apart, my support piece, when I remembered I was going to show you what I did wrong here. So on this side, I cut that piece so it goes just under the flashing, you can see. Well, the second piece I cut, that was my first one that I cut, and I cut it too short. That doesn't matter. You can see I did that, but on this side, I didn't cut under the flashing because it had to extend out like this, right? Well, the thing I screwed up with is I could have taken that top piece and cut it the same way along here, so it goes under the flashing, and then taken the second piece and extended it out all the way, and it wouldn't have buckled my flashing like that. So there you can see the flashing all buckled, and stupid me See, I could have avoided that pretty easily. When I get to the other corner, I'll show you, I'll do exactly what I should have done on this corner and avoid all the buckling. So we're pretty well done here. I'm just doing the cleanup, and you can see there's my transition. I had to rip a piece just to go in there, and then when I do the next third, I'll be ripping up all of this to the other side of that post and continuing on. A couple other things. I screwed up measuring this one, so I'm going to have to put another piece down. And remember me talking about this earlier, I'm already regretting not taking the time to cut around there, so when I do the other part, I'm going to rip this one up and cut a piece around there and do it that way. You can see my railing has a temporary fix here. This had been attached onto that other metal railing, and this is holding it pretty good with the tie wraps. That's could be temporary all winter long, I don't know yet, we'll see, but it is holding that really strong on there. So those are those structural bolts, 3.5 inch or whatever, or no, 3.25 inch, those ones. So they're holding well. Tie wraps, I looked at Home Depot, they didn't have the metal tie wraps. I'm going to go to Princess Auto. I've seen them at Princess Auto, so I'll lash these down with a couple of metal tie wraps and I'll be golden until it comes time to do something. I found a mobile welder. If we want to preserve this, I found a guy that will come here and weld. We'll see. Oh, and one final comment. Total time here was about 2 days work, and like I was saying, that's a primary factor for me. 2 days work. I got my porch back, it's not all ripped up, and I'm good to go. I'm not just trying to avoid permits. In fact, I got to get some permits for some other work I'm doing. I'm not afraid of permits. It's just mainly a matter of not having my porch ripped up for a whole month without being able to use it.